Well. This is Doc Hertz of Birds of a Feather, and we do flock together. And we want to bring you up to date with what's going on, especially in this season. Right now, we are 10-4. Yes, we've suffered our third straight loss. And so I want to just recap and talk about what's happened and what's about to take place and where we need to line up and where we're headed. So, a few things I want to talk about. One of the first things I want to talk about, number one, is remember the motto of Jalen Hurts has adapted. And when we started winning a couple of years ago, we started saying, keep the main thing, meaning that didn't matter who got the balls, didn't matter who got the credit, didn't matter anything as a team. When we pulled together, the main thing was winning the game. So in other words, the no little big eyes and little U's and big eyes. They wanted to focus and win the game. So as we hear the chatter going on, as we've lost some few games, everybody's kind of seemed like they get, well, not everybody's getting upset, but a few folks are getting upset. I want to remind you of, let's keep the motto the same. Keep the main thing. We knew in this season we would probably lose some games. I didn't believe we would lose this many. Some people thought we would lose more. But anyway, this is the state of it. And what we must do is remember the main thing is to win. So let's get back to that number one. No matter what, let's win. Number two is one game at a time. The last three games we looked at, this is how it all phased out. Well, if we beat Dallas, we could secure the home. We could secure the home advantage, and then that's what we began to focus on. So we weren't really focused upon that winning that game. We were focused on what that game was going to produce for something coming down the line. So did we take our eye off the ball and start looking a little bit too far ahead? So we lose that game, and then we come into San Francisco. Well, if we be in the San Francisco game, we pretty much lock up the the home court advantage or the home team advantage, and so we're still looking up ahead. Then we come to this game, Seattle. Well, if we win this game, we're pretty much going to clinch it. It's going to put Dallas behind us, and so now we find ourselves we lost three games in a row. But I believe that those three games was all focusing on what it was going to bring for us. So let's really back in, keep the main thing. Focus on winning and one game at a time. Let's focus on the game ahead. We have a game coming up with the New York Giants. Let's just focus on that. Don't worry about what it's going to bring you, what it's not going to bring you. We're going to deal with this with before us today. Sometimes you have to go back to the grounding principles that was already set up while you were winning for you to continue to win, for you to be successful. So, number one, keep the main thing. That's win. Number two, one game at a time. We don't have to worry about the next game, what's going to come. Let's focus on this game that we're facing and what we're going to be in. Number three is going to be the game plan. And that's, we're going to look back at our recent past to see what went wrong in that particular game and what was the game plan that got us in that situation. So if we look back, we see that going in that game plan, Jalen Hurts was sick around Friday or Thursday. And he got to the point to decide what they wanted to do. Did they want to play him? Did they not want to play him? So they decided they would still bring him in the hopes he would be feeling better on a private plane so that nobody else would catch the flu. And a decision was made that a sick Jalen Hurts was probably a better shot at winning than a good backup. In other words, a well backup was probably not the best, but even a sick Jalen Hurts would probably be better. So they came out, and that's what you play with. And many times, no matter how the focus may look, remember he's coming in this game at least about 80%, not quite at 100, but 80%. Still sick, still lingering. You could even tell after the game was over with and he was talking, and he really wasn't even talking all the way fully himself. It didn't seem it, but they played the game. They lost by 3. So a decision that was made on the game plan, number 3. And also, you had Darius Slay, one of the key corners on the defense, was out. He was a week during the week of injury. When that injury comes in, now all of a sudden, even though we say, oh, he's old, he can't do this, he can't do that. If you watch Darius Slay, between the first 5 yards to the 20 yards, if he's sticking anybody one-on-one, hey, man, he sticks on them like glue. Now, if you get a little further out, they start to get away from it. So therefore, you lost a lot. You lost nobody who could stick somebody, and even he'll pick off passes, and he's just a good player within that parameters, and then having a safety over top helps out a great deal. But I believe he would have been tremendous. But you can't worry about that. He was out of the game. That was a key component. Darius Slay was out. Jalen Hurts was sick. So when you're dealing with that, you still got to go. You still got to play. And another big shakeup, which happened during the same week, they changed the defensive coordinator. They didn't fire him outright. He goes upstairs. The other coach comes, and then he comes out with a defensive plan. Now, this is what you're going to think. At this time of the season, you change defensive coordinator. And I would just say this to you. If you change defensive coordinators at this time, while you're still ahead of the ball, after it was over with, can you look at the defense and say, well, I see a big difference. I see a change. Changing the defensive coordinator for that game did not look much different from what we've had before, except for you didn't have Darius Slay. Virtually almost the same. So therefore, I would say it really didn't really seem like it made a difference. And so therefore, I think that change was unnecessary. So there were some things we didn't do. We didn't say, well, hey, maybe benching Jalen would have been better to have a fresh guy come in. We don't know. You imagine now, if Jalen can bring you 28 points well, and he brings you 17 points sick, then that should have been enough points to win you the game. But with all that if, this, and that, I'm just saying the game plan was very disrupted. The offense was disrupted by just what we know about Jalen being sick. The defense was uprooted and off because you got a new coordinator. Then also you got one of your key guys on defense, one of your starters, all-pro player, not in the game. So there you have it. Now, the next thing we want to look at is your worst case scenario. What is the worst case scenario? Your worst case scenario is not that you lose one game. Your worst case scenario would be losing not 2 games out of the 3, but the worst case scenario would be that you lost all 3 of these next games. If you lost to the Giants, if you lost to the Cardinals, and you lost to the Giants again, that's the worst case scenario. If you lost all 3 of those games, what would happen? You would still be in the playoffs, and you would still be a wild card. So when you sit back and you look at the worst case scenario, and I see a lot of people seem like they're jumping ship, they doing all kind of stuff, they pulling their hair out, they losing their mind, seem like the difference is in the long run, you have an opportunity to be the number 1 seed in the division, winning the division. You win the division, or you could be a wild card, but you're in the playoffs. If you lost all 3 of those games, I'm going to say this, and you had to go to a wild card game. Are the fans still going to come and support you? Or are they going to still believe that, hey, yes, we lost? Matter of fact, we wouldn't be saying we lost 4 games, or we lost 3 in a row. We'd be saying we lost 6 in a row. Believe me, we'd still say, hey, we still believe we can win. We still believe we can win. I'm telling you what I know. Because if you notice the stadium in Seattle, when certain plays were going on and you hear the roar of the crowd, there were so many Philly fans at the game, you could have swore it was almost a home game. I could hear all the crowd. I'm like, man, what is going on? It's like it's a home game. So you're going to have the support, even if you lost the rest of the three games in the regular season. That's worst case scenario. You're still going to be in the finals. You're still going to be in the playoffs, not in the final, but in the playoffs. So therefore, you got the teams behind you. Now, with all that being said, if you are the divisional champions, or if you're the number one seed, or if you're a wild card, you're going to be in the playoffs. And in the playoffs, you're going to have the support of people who said, hey, we can win. I believe we can win. And I'm going to ask you, why would you say that? The reason you would say that because of the talent. We have probably the most talented team, if you went man for man, than any other team in the NFL. From the quarterback position to the running back position to the wide receiver position to your tackles, your tight ends, and especially some of your defensive linemen. Talent wise, we have the talent to win. So you have the talent, you have the support of the fans who are going to be there, even though they're crying and they're going crazy right now. Now, what does that mean? In the worst case scenario, you got to do what? Keep the main thing the main thing. That's win. And one game at a time. Develop a game plan. Also, depend on your talent. There's a lot of chatter going around now about the decision making of Jalen Hurts. Oh, he's the reason now. It was this, it was that. Let me say this. If you look at within the last 2 years, who has been the number one spokesman for the determination of the game? The number one spokesman, that's been your quarterback. Because they use a lot of the RPO, because he also has the ability to run the play that's called, but he also has the ability to change the plays that's called. So therefore, the majority of games in the last 2 years that they played, they've won consistently more than they've lost. So there's nobody who's been in a position to make a winning decision than Jalen Hurts. So what happens when you can look and say, oh, Jalen should have did this, he could have did this, he would have did this, but okay, let's look at what he did do, and when he did call it, how did you overcome? You went to the finals last year. You played an excellent game. You fell short. Only about 3 points, 4 points away from a Super Bowl champion, but you were in the Super Bowl. You've already clinched the playoffs. Even as a wild card, if you lost the rest of your game, he's already proven that, hey, he's a leader you can depend on. He's a leader to make the right decision and the choices. And the other things we're lacking, we're not going to worry about what our deficiencies are. Let's look at your strengths. And so no matter what everybody's saying, you got to go back, get into yourself, go back to the principles, get back to keep the main thing, one game at a time. And the Philadelphia Eagles, I believe, could very well find themselves as Super Bowl champions. Because when you commit and you dedicate, let me share this with you. There are some people right now saying that the Cardinals, I think they only won 2 games or so this season, maybe 3, 4, I don't know. It's not that many. They believe that the Cardinals could beat the Philadelphia Eagles. Well, if that be the case, if the Eagles could come in even as a wild card, don't you think that they could beat any team? Do you believe that the Eagles could beat Kansas City Chiefs? Do you believe that Kansas City Chiefs could beat any team that's up there, Baltimore and all the rest? So there is a parity amongst many teams that on any given Sunday, come on, the impossible can become possible. So let's look at one thing, and the final thing we're going to talk about that Jalen Hurts mentioned, even though when he was sick and they asked him a question and he gave an answer. And he said, what was seen to be the problem? He says commitment. Commitment. He says we're lacking commitment. What he means is that they've had a lot of distractions. This year, he came into his year getting contract played, and also getting paid. But with that comes a lot of other stuff. With that comes a lot of feelings, a lot of emotions, a lot of things people don't talk about, a lot of little hidden jealousies that people don't see. And he has to deal with the bulk of that, the weight of that to move forward. But through it all, what are going to be your commitment? Are you going to be committed to being in the study room, being in the films, doing the things that maybe not make you better, but to win, keeping the main thing, to make your teammate better? And not being to the point where let other things supersede what the goal in hand is. Let's win the goal at hand and everything else comes. So what he's saying, get back to the commitment, doing the small things, the small build-ups that make great teams and great people great. I believe that the Philadelphia Eagles are going to do that. And I just want to give you an outline of that. We see we got the great white eagle sitting over here. Yeah, he's sitting over there looking. He knows what's going on. And before long, one of these days, I'm gonna paint this eagle. Yeah, I'm gonna give him his true colors. I'm gonna paint him in, because from what I know, we don't have any albino, any eagles who look like this. So I'm gonna have to take the paintbrush and paint him up. And when I do, I want you to tell me what you think about him. So take a good look now at the albino eagle, and then you're gonna get an opportunity to see when I put him in all of his glory and his decorations, and give him a yellow beak and all of that with a little brown thing on. Just gonna hook him up with them eyes and stuff, little yellow eyes. Gonna hook him up real good. But with all of that being said, I'm Doc Hurts of Birds of a Feather. We do flock together. Get ready, get ready, get ready. And I'm just so excited. Want to see you the next time. And like I say many times, see you. And sometimes I may want to be you. Shalom, shalom, and shalom.